Hello, Gemini. Welcome to your March 2023 astrology forecast. I know these are a little bit late, but we're still getting them posted before all the big stuff really happens. So this is a month that we have been waiting for a very long time. We have Pluto right here moving into Aquarius. We have Saturn moving into Pisces as well. And also, and I think this is probably going to be the one that Gemini is like, oh, thank goodness, we finally have Mars moving out of your sign, which has been there for about 7 months now, since the very end of August. At the end of March, Mars moves on into Cancer. And this is going to give Gemini, a break in one sense. You're still going to feel the effects of Saturn in a pretty big way. But, I think you would take Saturn energy right now just for a little bit of a break. Mars has had Gemini moving, going all around. A lot of ideas and a lot of creativity, but maybe not a lot of things have really stuck. Okay, Mars is not the type of energy that really carries us over the finish line. He's an initiator, okay? He's ready to charge at the front of the line, but he's not necessarily the most organized or strategic planet. He really just goes after things. And if something else catches his attention, he'll go after that thing instead. So it's not always super straightforward, especially in a sign like Gemini, which is more about collection, right? Where you're collecting a lot of information, a lot of, people can come into your life when Mars is in here. And it doesn't necessarily mean that anything is going to really fully take hold. But when Mars moves into Cancer, now remember, Cancer is the sign of Mars' fall. He is exalted over here in Capricorn, which means he falls down here in Cancer. Now, this doesn't necessarily mean that Mars is like fully weak. It just means that Mars, first of all, there's an inward quality with Cancerian energy, and that's not necessarily Mars's favorite thing to do. He likes to be out in the world, going out, accomplishing things, reaching goals, and doing all that kind of thing. And so here, when he comes into Cancer, there's going to be a lot of processing, a lot of culminating and really feeling your way through things. If you did, in fact, start a bunch of projects, or if you were in like brainstorm mode over the past 7 months and you had a lot of movement, chances are you're going to be kind of internalizing everything and reflecting and contemplating back on stuff. And you're going to be like, okay, what can I actually make work? Now, Mars in the second is fantastic for applying your skills. So your skills, your talents, your knowledge, working with your hands, actually creating things, that comes in really handy when Mars is here, because he's like, all right, let's actually, like with all this stuff that I have with my arsenal, which is who I am, and I have all these ideas in front of me, how can I make that match? Of all of these ideas and all of these potentials, what is it that I have, and which one of these things is that going to align with the best? And when you figure out which one is working the most, or which one is going to offer you the most flow, or which one's going to offer you the most growth, or you have the most passion for, whatever the criteria is, you get to go after that and you get to apply yourself. Now, Mars in Cancer is going to be much more focused, but there's still a fluctuation with Cancerian energy. Remember, Cancer is ruled by the moon, which is always waxing and waning, and it's up and down. And it's like, it's very fast moving as well. So there's not a ton of consistency with Cancerian energy either, but at least you have the power of that intuition to really guide you here. So your intuition is going to be guiding you toward the thing that you can apply yourself to for the greatest outcome, probably money, okay, the greatest financial outcome. So that can be really positive for Gemini. It's going to be positive for everyone in some degree, but especially for Gemini, because I know that you are the ones that had the pot stirred the most, okay? Now, to couple that, we also have Saturn coming in to Pisces as well. This is happening tomorrow on March 7th. So he crosses over this 10th house cusp. I have this clock set for March 15th, by the way. It's just middle of the month to kind of give us an idea where everything is headed. So yes, Saturn comes over this 10th house cusp and immediately puts a pretty significant emphasis on your career. Now, Saturn in the 10th, as much as we might like to think that he's very strong and powerful here, what he really does is he puts concentrated effort on the table. So this is a time of discipline for Gemini, and I actually like the fact that Mars in Cancer is going to be complementing and in a trining aspect with Saturn. Because that trining aspect is going to really enhance the flow or the fluidity of things, where, normally a Saturn moving sign might be really challenging or really hard. I think Mars is adding an extra boost to make Saturn energy favorable, where we actually want to be really disciplined. We want to be focused. We want to be productive. We want to go out there and do the things and build the things that we say we want to build. There could be some setbacks for sure, because Saturn is always, making things just a little bit more challenging than we think it needs to be all the time. But I think it really is in our best interest, because he's ensuring that anything that is not stable becomes stable or is eliminated either way. So if there is something going on career-wise, or in terms of, not everyone who goes through 10th house transits has like this massively important career that they care so much about. There may just be who you are out there in the world in some generic way that is emphasized as well. But I think Gemini is wanting more. Gemini is wanting more growth. They're wanting more money. They're wanting more of a lot of things. Now, over the past couple of years, Saturn has been in Aquarius, which has activated the 9th house and made that kind of expansion maybe a bit of a challenge, where you may have thought that maybe new ideas or a new job or a new business that you started was just going to take off. But then Saturn is like, I'm not going to let you just zoom up out of control. All right, we have to incrementally increase this so that it's sustainable. It's kind of like Saturn not wanting you to win the lottery because it knows that you would spend all the money. So it's working you up and it's increasing you slowly, and it's giving you an opportunity to familiarize yourself with the kind of higher, I don't want to say the higher vibration, but like the higher realm of existence, whatever that means for you. So he was kind of slowly working you up, working you up, working you up, working you up. And now that he's done with that 9th house transit and Pluto comes in here, I think Pluto is I actually am for air signs, right? You've got this beautiful trining thing happening with Pluto. And I actually think this is going to be really positive for the air signs, unless you have, lots of Aquarius in your chart, or maybe even some Leo or Taurus or Scorpio. And I know that's a lot of signs, but generally speaking, for the air signs, Pluto coming in is going to make the transformative quality of Pluto a lot more manageable. It's going to make the transformative energies more enjoyable to a degree. Like, this is something that flows a little bit easier. Your growth, your evolution is going to be something that you more fully embrace rather than resist. Now, in the 9th house, there is a lot of spiritual growth that happens, and Pluto in the 9th is like, I want to grow as much spiritually as I possibly can. And usually spiritual growth can translate, unless you dedicate yourself to like a life of poverty and you go and, that kind of thing. Generally speaking, people aren't going to be doing that. But spiritual growth can translate into material growth, especially through that 9th house. We see a lot of children often come through the 9th house as well. I know that's 5th house energy, but I do see it in the 9th too. We see a lot of higher education, wanting to really learn a lot, and also for many Geminis, massive desire for travel or relocation. And you may mix a lot of these together, traveling for spiritual reasons, like going on spiritual retreats or yoga retreats or something. You may travel for education purposes, like going abroad for, to go university or something like that. So there's a lot on the table for Gemini in terms of the freeing, because I know that, I know I've talked about this like a billion times with Gemini, but yes, Pluto through Capricorn in the 8th house is probably the most challenging. I would say Aquarius and Gemini. I would say Libra with the 4th house, but I think 8th house and 12th are a little bit more challenging, and also Leo with the 6th. But Pluto through the 8th is one of the most challenging Pluto transits, which now you're done. Well, not officially. Of course, Pluto's going to go back and forth a couple of times, but now that he's touching ground in Aquarius, we are starting to see that new era of our life sort of come online. So you've gone through incredible evolution since 2008. Of course, clearly you're no longer the same person that you were. None of us are. And you know a lot more now. And so this is your extraordinary desire for life to be easier, fully expressed, Pluto through the 9th. Desire for life to be more free, for life to be more free-flowing, for life to be more whimsical in a lot of ways. And you're going to probably do that more through intellectual pursuits that maybe you never really thought. I think a lot is going to be coming online for Gemini in terms of their spiritual and intellectual growth. And I think that's a place, of course, where Gemini is going to thrive. So I feel that this could potentially be really, really good. I genuinely do. Of course, transformation is never easy, so there are a lot of ups and downs, but it's something that I think you're willing to tackle, okay? Because Saturn over here is like, again, the expansion of the 9th can be very supportive, and all the information and the knowledge that you acquire with Pluto in the 9th is going to really help Saturn in the 10th, who's really trying to build something. Now, you might be dissolving something more than you're building something right now, where you eliminate one career path or one career option and you start opening yourself up very slowly to new career options over the next couple of years. And you're probably going to start to feel that coming online like in March. Like, I don't know that this is really what I want to be doing anymore. So, I need space. I need to create space for something entirely new. And yes, universe, I have faith and trust that you will show me the best and the right way for me. And over time, you'll start to have a more clearly defined path, but it is going to require the dissolution of an old one. So what you think your life is supposed to be, chances are in 2 years, 3 years, you're going to be like, how silly I was to think that that was the way my life was going to go. I'm excited. I think Gemini is one of the signs I'm most excited for, especially here with Jupiter coming off of Chiron. Now, Jupiter has been building up to Chiron ever since the beginning of February. I've been talking about it ad nauseum, all right? This clock obviously set for March 15th. At the beginning of March, Jupiter is still building up to Chiron. And we know that Chiron can Jupiter is going to magnify everything, and Chiron is the thing that it will be magnifying. So it is magnifying the pain and trauma, the inner child stuff, the resistances, the hesitancies, all the things that have been preventing you from really being available for that new life. And some of us may think like, well, I consciously am available. I consciously say, well, I do want this. And if I was sitting down with you face to face having a conversation, you'd probably be very, very convincing. Yes, this is what you want. You do want that relationship. You want this career. You want this money. You want this for your children, whatever the case may be. But I think Jupiter exposes kind of an underlying thing that's happening way below the surface, where you start to realize that there was a quiet and inaccessible thought pattern or vibration, if you will, kind of underlying everything. And as much as you were saying out loud and thinking in your conscious mind, this is what I want, there was a part of you down here that was like, nope, I'm not ready. I don't want it. I'm scared. I'm afraid. It's not worth it, whatever the case is. And that was what has been holding you back for so long. And so Jupiter comes out and he exposes that. And I think for you in the 11th house, this has a lot to do with the way you connect with people. It has a lot to do with your friends and the types of people that you associate with, and being really afraid to move on, being afraid to give up those childhood friends and move on to bigger and better, friend groups. I'm not saying that this is judgmental. It's not saying that you are thinking that you're better than people. It's just, in terms of your life goals, there are people that are better for you than others. And sometimes we outgrow them. And sometimes it can be very hard to separate or, kind of experience that severance from that. I'm not saying all of you have been breaking up with your friends or anything, but I do suspect there is a massive illumination, right? They always say we are the average of the 5 people that we spend the most time with. So when you're looking around at the 5 people that you spend the most time with, I want you to ask yourself, is this really who I want to be? And if that answer is no, then chances are you're going to start making some moves, probably not even consciously, but you're going to start making some moves to make revisions accordingly. See, the thing with Saturn in the 10th is it can be really brutal. And you can often be seen as the bad guy, right? This is how people see you. People see you as the Saturn. They see you as the person that is coming in with that scythe and cutting everything down. So yeah, you may need to be the villain a little bit. And I think that actually, now that I'm thinking about it, I think it was the Gemini reading that I did for March, the tarot reading, that really talked about it was like your villain era. And yeah, Saturn comes in. It is your villain era. It's time for you to not be afraid to be the bad guy. It's time for you to, to make the moves that are required for you to live the life that you want to live, even if that means that you have to be the bad person in someone's story. Okay. And I think this does have a lot to do with friends and the associations and the people with whom you are tightly connected with. And even professionally, if you're networking professionally at a certain level, it's probably time to take it up a notch, and you know it. All right. So yes, Jupiter has a couple of months left in Aries. I do kind of feel we got a little shortchanged with this, with Chiron being smack dab in the middle. We didn't get like the full, true, real benefit of Jupiter being in Aries until now. And so we're going to have a really condensed 2-month period ahead of us where Jupiter gets to fully actualize that Aryan archetype in our life. And of course, Aries has a little bit more of a me first kind of attitude. It's interesting that you have the me first attitude in the group of friends, or in the house of friends and associations and affiliations. Putting yourself first, but leveraging those relationships for the sake of growth, not only for yourself, but for the growth of everyone else as well. Now, when we take a look at this from a diurnal perspective, when I say diurnal, on a daily basis, all right, the rotation goes clockwise. All right, so when we look at this kind of backwards, yes, the planets do move counterclockwise, but from a diurnal rotation, it goes the other way. So when I look at it from that perspective, we have the kind of support going the other way. So the 11th house supporting the 10th, and the 10th supporting the 9th, and so on and so forth. So the 11th house, our associations, very much supporting our careers, supporting our contributions. These two houses, similar to the 7th and 8th, are so intrinsically linked. They are so deeply connected. And the success of our careers can often only be as good as the success of certain relationships, okay? Last but not least, we have Venus coming into your 12th house, which is Taurus. And yes, she is coming into her sign of rulership. Now, I'm saying this for everyone. I just want to kind of prepare you because I think this is one of the least pronounced transits. Okay, she comes in on the 16th. It's one of the least pronounced transits that we are going to be experiencing this month, but I think it's going to play a bigger role later on. So let me explain what I'm saying. So the North Node tends to create a lot of desire, but there's a lot of blockage with that desire as well. And sometimes we can have a very skewed perspective on the things of that house. Okay, so of the 12th house. So this may have a lot to do with your healing process that you're going through. And it's possible that Gemini, you seem to have a very clear perspective of what's happening with you. You have a very clear perspective on what you think your life is and what happened in the past and so on and so forth. And even if you're dealing with an actual physical illness, you may think you have a very clear idea of what you're dealing with. Venus is coming home, which means I always kind of like envision these houses or these signs as like home, right? So this is Venus coming back home to her beautiful mansion, and she's got these really two strange house guests. She's got the North Node, which is kind of really out there and kind of greedy and kind of ravenous, if you will. And then we have this really eccentric social reform, highly politicized Einstein type of person here with Uranus. Okay, there's like a really weird combination of people going on in her house. So she has to come home and like entertain, and she has to really listen to what these house guests have to say. She's got to sit down to dinner with them, and she has to like, appease them. And of course, Venus is going to be very kind and charming and gracious, and she'll be, handling everything very diplomatically. She'll come in, and I think what's happening is there's a lot of desire. I don't know why this just came to my mind. This doesn't really have anything to do with 12th house, but it just popped in that there's some kind of a problem that Gemini is trying to solve. Okay, like let's use a physical illness. Okay, let's say you think you have one problem going on and you really, really want to solve this problem. So there's a lot of desire going in it, but for some reason the problem isn't getting solved. So all this desire sort of backs up, and it kind of creates like a clog, if you will. Now in July, that North Node is leaving and it's going to move into Aries. Also in July, Venus is retrograding down in Leo. Just so happens this is the house of information, okay? So what's going to happen is in July, the 12th house is going to open back up, and all that backed up desire stuff is going to start shooting through. And you're probably going to be presented with the Venus retrograde in the 3rd with some new information. There's going to be massive illumination for Gemini. And the things that you thought were true, or the things you thought were going on, ends up to be something else. Like again, if you're dealing with a health problem, you may think you've had the diagnosis, but then it comes to light that, oh, there's actually something else happening. And there's really not a lot you can do to really speed that up. I think the stars are really pacing us like so perfectly. So this isn't something that you need to put a ton of effort in. It's just something that is needing to happen. The reason why I'm saying this is just for you to know that there's going to be a little bit of foreshadowing. And I think Saturn and Mars and Pluto, they're really taking the show really far off, okay? They're kind of in the lead right now, but this is happening behind the scenes. And Venus is sort of, it's kind of like when the news or the media just blasts a story out, and then you find out like 6 weeks later that there was like some other like really backdoor thing going on over in Washington. You're like, holy cow, like why wasn't the media talking about that, right? That's kind of what I feel is happening with Venus. No one's going to be talking about it. It's not going to feel like a big deal. But later on, you're going to be like, oh, wow, that actually really makes a lot of sense. And a lot of things that are happening in March will make much more sense in July once that node transitions. Okay. So I just wanted to kind of prepare you for that. Again, the information that you think you're working with, it just might be, it's not that it's wrong, it's that it's not complete. All right, I think that you're not operating with a full picture here of something. Now, 12th house themes, we can also pull in the 6th because we've got that opposition there with the node, with the south node. Health and nutrition, there's a lot of, mental health stuff that comes through here as well. Spiritual health, spiritual healing. There could be something going on with, your tendency to want to pull away if you're feeling very hermit mode, you're not really wanting to go out very much, that kind of thing. All right. So, but you're going to be, really struck with some new information later on, and it's going to make a lot of sense. And then that Taurus energy is going to really start to be able to kind of move forward a lot better. Okay. All right, Gemini, I'm going to leave you with that. Thank you so much. You guys know how much I love and adore you. Have an amazing month, and I'll talk to you soon. Take care.